This is the Apostle Peter.
And the Apostle Peter was Jesus' friend, right?
The Apostle Peter was the Apostle's friend, right? I'm the friend. They're from the friends.
Well, here is a little picture of Jesus calling the Apostle Peter and John out of their boats. They were fishermen. Do you remember that? And he said, "Come, follow me and leave your nets." Well, Peter, do you know what happened with Peter? After Jesus died, and when he rose again, and when he went up to heaven, Peter became the first pastor. This is a picture of Peter with Jesus, and look what's happening in this picture. Jesus is standing on the water. He's walking on the water. You see that? And he's saying to Peter, "Peter, you can walk on the water too." And Peter started to walk on the water, but then what happened to him? He started to sink down and drowned. He was going to die. So do you know what Jesus did? He reached out his hand and he grabbed Peter and he pulled Peter back up. And Peter learned that he needed to have faith in Jesus. Do you think Jesus could help you walk on the water? Do you think Jesus could help you with any problem? Well, Peter was thinking maybe Jesus couldn't help him with a problem, so he started to sink. But later on, Peter became a pastor, and he traveled all around this whole map. This down here is Jerusalem. Do you remember Jerusalem and Bethlehem? That cross right there is Jerusalem. Right there. That's where Jesus died. And Peter went all around this whole map telling people about Jesus because he became the first pastor. Here's another picture of Jesus helping Peter to walk on the water. And there's Peter's friends way back there. They're in the boat. This is when Peter became an old man. And he became the first pastor, and he even wrote some of the Bible. And do you know what he's doing there? He's praying to God, and he's having a vision. You remember what a vision is? A vision is when you're praying, and God gives you a special picture in your mind, and God is talking to you through that picture. I don't think he's in the jail there, but if you look down here, what do you see down in this picture down here? That's right, those are keys. But do you know what those keys are for? Jesus said to Peter, "Peter, I'm giving you the keys to my church." And that meant that Peter was going to be the first pastor. Now I'm going to tell you something else about Peter that happened to Peter. Do you know how Peter died? He died on a cross just like Jesus died on a cross. See there? See his hands over here? And you see up here his feet up here? He died on a cross just like Jesus died on a cross. Well, it was a different cross than Jesus' cross, but do you know why he died on that cross? There were some bad men. They did not want Peter to talk about Jesus. So they told him, "Peter, you cannot tell anyone about God or Jesus, and don't preach." But Peter said, "But I'm a pastor. I have to preach Jesus told me to preach and tell everyone about God. But Peter told people about God anyway, so these bad men in this picture right here, they killed him because he was talking about Jesus so much. If you look here, see this man right here, he's lifting up Peter's cross right there. See how he's crouched down? And this man up here is pulling on a rope to pull Peter up. But there was one thing that was different about Peter, the way he died. Do you know what that was? Peter died on the cross upside down.
Why?
Because he did not want to die the same way as Jesus. He thought only Jesus should die that way. So they put him upside down on a cross.
What's that shovel for?
That shovel down here, that is the shovel that they are using to dig the hole to put the cross down in. I'll show you that shovel. There's the shovel that they're using to dig the hole to put the cross in.
Why is he?
Because he thought Jesus was so good and so wonderful that he thought only Jesus could die that way. So he wanted to die upside down. Because he was saying Jesus is so much better than me, because Peter was very humble. Humble means that humble means that you always know that God is good and you are not, and God is the best. And it means that you don't boast and say, I'm so good, I'm so good. They killed a lot of people on crosses those days, and especially if you were talking about Jesus and they did not want you to talk about Jesus, then they would put you on a cross. In our country, they let us talk about Jesus all the time if we want, right? The police don't stop us. But someday the police might try to stop us from talking about God. And we need to talk about God anyway and tell people about Jesus, even if the police want to stop us. Here's that picture again of Peter getting put on the cross upside down. See, there's Peter. And there's his hands with that nail sticking in. And over here, you see up here, there's his feet with the nail sticking in. Here's a picture of Peter before he was filled with the Spirit, and he was so afraid that he told a bunch of people that he did not know Jesus. He lied to them because he was so afraid. But later he became so brave that he was even willing to die on a cross because he loved Jesus. Here's another picture of Peter after he got filled with the Spirit. He healed that man, so that man could not walk before, but now that man can walk. Here's another picture of Peter after he was filled with the Spirit. He's preaching about Jesus to all these people. There's Peter right there, and he's telling all these people about God. Is he afraid of those people? No, because he was afraid before, but with God's Spirit, the sun is shining into the house. But before he had God's Spirit, he was afraid. But after, he was so brave. There was another time when Peter got put in jail because he was talking about Jesus. And look at what happened. Who is this right here? It's an angel that came and took Peter out of the jail and put Peter outside so Peter could preach even more. And Peter was not afraid. He was brave because God gave him power. Here's a picture of a jail that people would live in today. It looked a little different when Peter was in the jail, but they threw him in a place like this with all these bars that was locked so he could not go out and he could not see his family. Here's another picture of a jail that was probably more like where Peter was. He got thrown into that jail. It was so dark and dirty, and he could not go out and see anyone. But the angel came and took him out of the jail. And look at what the angel did to these people over here. These soldiers were supposed to be keeping Peter in the jail, but the angel made them fall asleep. And here's another picture of a jail. These men are stuck in there. And look at how dirty it is, and look at how there's nothing fun there. No books, no TV, no toys, no family, all alone. But did God leave Peter in the jail? God let Peter out with his angel. Now, what if some people told you not to talk about God? Should you be afraid of them? Sometimes we're afraid to talk about God if we're afraid of what people will think. But God gave Peter strength to not be afraid, and God will give you strength to not be afraid of what anyone thinks and to tell everyone about Jesus and to not be afraid.